Good morning. We will be having again another tutorial about creating an application named Molmash using sprite layering. So in this tutorial, we will be building a game similar to a whack-a-mole arcade game. So the very goal of this is for you to tap a mole that randomly pops out of one of the five fixed holes, and every time you succeed, your score is increased by 1 point. So with this, in this tutorial, we'll be having or adding components in our designer and use any component functionality to get and set properties of image sprite components. So also, we'll be having controlling gameplay with the clock component. And of course, the sprite Z layering to ensure that one of the image sprite appears in front of another. So let me share my screen for you in order for you to see how to build this application. So as you can see in my screen, I already have created the application. Let me just go over with you the components that you need to include in the designer view so that you'll be able to create this application. Okay. Of course, we have here um, a game canvas, okay, which um, allows you to put the holes and also with the mold. So this will serve as the green field of our application. We also have here the five image sprite holes. So these are the holes. Okay, let me show you the hole. So I'll be providing you the link of where you can download these images, okay, for you to utilize in this game development. So we also have the mole. So this is the mole, okay, as you can see. Okay, we also have here our labels, which it's where you will be showing the scores when you mash the mob. Okay. Also, there's a buzzer which allows us to make vibrations every time we successfully mash a mole, and a clock. Okay. So this will set to control the mole movement in our canvas. We can you can also improve this application by including some sound effects every time you um, are success. Every time you successfully mash a mole, no, you can make a sound effect. All right. So let's start to build this application. So again, we create a new project and we name it mole mash game. Okay. So in order for us to utilize the images, right? So I already pre-downloaded it. So you just have to upload a media. Okay, so you can see it here. Upload the media. So let's upload the mall and the holes. Okay. where it is. Let me see in my, so let me again just download it to our components. So it's in sources. Okay, so we have the whole. And let's upload the mole. Okay, so that's the first thing that we need to do. Now we can now include our game canvas. Okay, so let's now set it up. So we go to drawing and animation, and we include canvas. All right, so let's set this up to um, change our properties. So our background color will be set to green. So you can choose any color. So you can choose green or gray. So let's try green. Okay, we will set the height and the width with 300 by 320 by 320 pixels. Okay, so we'll now have this one. Also, we now try to um, have our image sprite or our holes. Okay, so we can just drag it up here. Okay, so we have 5 holes, right? So we set this hole 1. So let's rename. Let's name it as hole 1. We set the x and the y to 20 and 60. So the next hole is hole 2. We set the x and the y to 130 by 60. Hole 3, set it to 240 by 60. I also have hole 4 and set it to 75 by 140. And the last hole is 185 by 140. So we also have the mole. All right. So we need to include image right here again. We will set the mole using the mole picture that we just uploaded. So we can use picture mole. Okay. So we now have the mole. Okay. Let's change the z to of the mole to 2 so that it appears in front of the holes that we have. Okay. So by default, it's set by 1. Okay. So let's set it by 2. So let's also include text labels. So we go to label. Let's change the text to um, score. So you can rename this as score label. And we have the score. It's better to put it in a horizontal alignment so that would be let's put it here. So score. It's not really working here. Put it like this. To have so we name it as score. Score text. Okay. So we also have to um, includes sound and clock. So we go to media. We have clock. So we have sound. It's drag in here. So we name it as buzzer. Um, wrong. So where's the clock? Hmm, here. You can see it in the sensors. So we name it as the mall clock. All right. So I think this is the components that we want to add in our designer. Okay. So let's now start to build the blocks. Okay. So what we need here is, of course, we need to create a variable for a holes. So, and it holds a list of whole images that we have. Okay. So every time our app starts, we need to populate the list of holes, and we set each hole's picture property to hole.png, and it also move the mole randomly to a hole. So by that, we create a procedure move mole, okay, to move the mole. Okay, so let's try to start variable initialize. Okay, global variable. So we need this is a hole. Okay, and we create a list of the holes. So we create an empty list. Right. So as we said, if we start the app, so we need to have our screen being initialized, and let's try to include the codes. So click our screen when screen initialize. Okay. What it will do is to add the items to the list. Okay. And set the image to the hole that we have. Okay. So let's add a list. Okay. And we need to get the holes to our go to our get global hole. Okay, and our items would be our holes. To add item, just have to click it here. Okay, and drag it over here. So we have 5 holes. So we need to have 5 items. Okay, and we need to get the holes already. Get the hole. So let's just copy it. And we change the hole names to the hole. So I have hole 2, hole 3, hole 4. I think we did not set hole 5. So we have it here. So let's rename it to hole 5. So let's also rename this to our mole. Also, so our next is, so every time that we have our screen initialized, so we randomly place the mole to our holes. Okay, so we have go to control. So every time okay, we need to have this. Let's change it to hole, and we get the global holes. Let's check. Let's check holes. So that would be okay. And then we now set the um the image of the holes to the hole.png. So we go to any component. It's here we use the image bright. Okay. Any image bright. So we set the image picture, right? To so let's get hole. Okay. and then we set the whole image to whole.png. Okay, so again we also have the mole move, so we need to create a procedure on that. So let's create do procedure. Okay, name it to move mole. Okay, this procedure allows us to move the mole every time we in every time a second or every second. Okay, so it is not good if you are going to um make the mole stagnant in one place. Okay, so every time the mole move, we need again we initialize the we initialize a the current hole. So we need to have this initialize. Okay, just drag it over here. Name it as the current hole. So we will know where our mole is located in a hole, a certain hole. Okay. So we need to pick it random because we need to have a random. So we pick pick random. So in our list, let's get the whole. Okay, and then we have the mole. Okay, so let's click the mole, and then every time it moves to a certain hole, so we set image sprite of any component. And so you need to set the value of the x and the y. Okay, so we get the current hole here. Let's just copy this. So this will check the current hole where the our mole is located. All right. So we have it now. A procedure that allows us to make the mole move along our holes. Okay, and pop up all along our holes. So we need to call a procedure. Okay, put it here. Okay. So now we need to specify that move mole should be called whenever mole clock's timer goes off. So we just need two blocks to accomplish that. So we need to go to our mole clock timer, and when our mole clock timer the will be triggered, So we need to call mall move. Okay. So this allows us to every tick of the clock, it will move the mall to a certain hole. Okay. So now we need to have registering touches. So we need to specify what happens when the mall is touched. So specifically, we want to increment the score, make the phone vibrate briefly, and we need to move the mall. So we now click when the mall is touched. Okay, when the mall is touched, we set again. We want to increment the score by 1. So we have here the score text. So we set the score text to, okay, to 1. So we increment by 1. So is the math. Okay, so this want the value of 1 to be added to our score value. So we score text and so this one, right? So we set the value of our score to 0. Okay, so initially it starts with 0. And we want that the phone will vibrate every time we touch the mole. So we call the buzzer that we created and then vibrate. So how many milliseconds that it will vibrate. So go to math, this one, set it to 100 milliseconds. And lastly, okay, I want to move the mall. So let's call move mall. Place it here. So it's now time to test our app, whether it works or not. So this is now our final program. Okay. So let's try to set it up and check whether it will work in our phone. So let's go to connect AI companion. So while waiting, okay, let me just set up my smartphone. So let me now share my screen. And then we go to AI companion and scan our app. So let's scan. Share my screen. Okay, let's get back to the hole. So we have now here the mole. So you can see that the mole is moving into our holes randomly. So let's try to mash. Okay, we successfully mashed. That's why our score increased by 1. Okay, so we continue to do the mash. Okay, so that's basically our app. Okay, let me stop share. Okay, that is down our application mode mash. Okay, so what you can do to improve this is you can include variations of it. So what you need to improve is you need maybe to add a reset button to set the score back to 0. So also having the score depend not just the number of hits but also the number of misses in escape moles. So you can add there. If so increasing the speed of the game of the mole movement if the player is doing well and decreasing if the player is doing poorly. Also, you need to have or you need to adding call this second mole on a different timer. So also you can include background sounds every time you successfully mash a mole. Okay. So basically that is all for this tutorial. Okay. Enjoy developing the app.